Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. As a real estate investor, you not only have to decide what to invest in, but where. Well, today we're going to talk about a market that is leading the nation once again in something we call net in-migration, meaning more people are moving there than anywhere else. And we've got a great guest on the Real Estate Guys radio program. As real estate investors, it's no secret that the real estate guys love Florida, and the Sunshine State continues to receive more than its fair share of businesses and population relocating from the Northeast, which has created a huge opportunity for real estate investors. So come join me in mid-September for our Jacksonville field trip. On this highly interactive trip, you'll get an up-close, hands-on, personal experience you'd be hard-pressed to find elsewhere. You'll feel the vibrancy of the markets, observe the quality of the infrastructure, and truly get a sense of the demographics. All things you just can't do by simply searching online. Plus, we'll introduce you to our boots-on-the-ground team, and you'll meet some amazing investors from all over. To reserve your spot, go to realestateguysradio.com and click Events, then Live and In-Person Events, where you'll find the Jacksonville field trip. There's a big difference between researching a market from afar and seeing it with your own eyes. So join the Real Estate Guys September 13th to 15th as we explore Jacksonville and some surrounding markets. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click Events, where you'll find the Jacksonville field trip. I look forward to seeing you there. Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. The great thing about real estate is it's easy to find. Everywhere you look, there's real estate. And yet the distinctions we look for as real estate investors have often to do with the market. What drives a market? Why do people want to be here, live here, work here, vacation here? What makes this market more attractive? And is it bringing in the right types of folks? Meaning economically viable for landlords. If I own a single-family house, there's a particular avatar that wants to rent a single-family house. And the same is true for apartments, as well as retail and office space and every other kind of real estate. Sales, both the number of sales and the price of transactions, are determined by supply and demand. Anyone who's studied economics understands that. But the truth is, there are places in your city, in your state, in your country, in the world, where there is more demand for real estate than other places. So when people ask what's the secret to being successful in real estate, this is one of them: market selection, finding a market that makes sense not only today, but is likely to in the future. And that's super important because as real estate investors, we can't just pop in and pop out of markets. Every time we sell a property, there's a lot of friction. Sales costs, commissions, transfer taxes, all of that adds up. And it's why we say you get married to a market. Once you pick a market, you're going to be there for a while. In order for you to even break even, a property has to appreciate by 8 or 10 or 12%. But the great news is with a little research and a little study and a little help, you can find the markets that are, quote-unquote, better than others. Now, that's in the eye of the beholder, too. It completely depends on the type, the nature, the uses of real estate that you're interested in. For example, the oldest possible use for real estate, agriculture. And there's still great opportunity in agriculture, but you have to get the market right. That's not just where it physically sits, but its proximity to transportation. And then you have to look at things like the right soils, the right climate, the right access to labor. Well, most of us think of real estate investing as residential. People live in our houses or apartments and pay us rent. But in some areas, they can afford to pay more rent. In other areas, there's so much competition, they can pay less rent. So market selection becomes critical. Today, we're going to look at some markets that have had unique advantages, and not just temporarily. And we're going to start with something called net in-migration. And here's the premise. Every day, people are moving in and out of every real estate market. No matter how hot the market is, there's people leaving. No matter how dismal the market is, there's people moving there. So what we look for is, what is the net? After we take all the people moving in and subtract all the people moving out, do we have a positive or a negative number? The net migration, if positive, can be a great indicator. So we'd call that net in migration. We take all those that move in minus all those that move out, and if there's more moving in than out, we have positive net in migration. Now, that is by no means the only metric, but it is a great starting point. And it makes sense. If more people are moving into a market, well, they're going to have more needs for housing and every other real estate need. So a quick question to ask would be, where's there a market where you live that people are constantly moving into more than they're moving out of? In the United States of America, there are some states that are losing occupants. More people are leaving every month than are moving there. And of course, that means the opposite is true. There are states where a lot more people move in than move out. And the state that has topped that list for a long, long time is the state of Florida, followed by the state of Texas, North Carolina, and Arizona. Those are places that are attracting more people, which means there may be better than average real estate opportunity. Now, if you've listened to our show for a while, you know that we like Florida. We like a lot about Florida. Florida has a great economy, a diverse economy, not just one thing, but lots of different things. Florida has good proximity. It's easy to get to, travel through, get around in. Florida has great jobs, entry-level jobs, mid-level jobs, senior jobs. And Florida has a great climate. As our guest today says, it's cheap and cheerful. Florida in general is just cheap and cheerful. Does that mean Florida's for you? Well, not necessarily. I've always said live where you want to live and invest where the numbers make sense. If you live in a place where the numbers make sense, then you don't have to leave home. But for many of us, we live somewhere for different reasons than real estate metrics. And so we have to sometimes look at markets that are a county away, a state away, a country away. Our guest today has been living and working in Florida for many, many years. She actually started outside of Florida in the radio business a long time ago. But for more than 4 decades, she's helped people just like you buy investment property. Not homes to live in, but properties to invest in. And she works a wider geography than most agents because she focuses so much on investors. And as you'll see, she is still as excited about her markets as she ever has been. Hopefully that enthusiasm will be contagious as we meet our good friend Jean Gillen today on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Hey everybody, Tom Ziegler here. You're listening to the Real Estate Guys with the one and only Robert Helms. Man, I got to tell you, this is where you go for wisdom. And as Dad would say, the checkup from the neck up to get rid of the hardening of the attitude so that you can make a difference in the lives of other people. So glad you're here.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. We're talking about one of our favorite real estate markets. It's a market that makes sense from a demographic point of view, made sense from jobs and all the things that we pay attention to. And that is, as our guest today says, cheap and cheerful Florida. Let's welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, Jean Gillen. Hey, Jean.
Hey, how are you, Robert? Thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to have you back. And of course, you've been selling real estate in Florida for a long time, mostly to just investors, which is different. You know, a lot of realtors, they work with homeowners and they list and sell houses, but that's not what you do. You work with investors, and Florida's been a great place to invest for a long time. Talk about just what's happening in your market and what you're excited about.
Well, you know, and as you point out, Florida's been good for a long time. And I have investors that bought when it didn't make any sense. I mean, it didn't make any sense back in 2008 or in 90 or in the early 80s and the 90s when the interest rates were high. But what they found out was that if they held it, or those houses are now 3-4 times as much as they paid for them, but eventually the rents catch up. So you have to have the idea and understand why you're doing this. You're doing this because it's a great place to put your money. You never have to pay any taxes on real estate because we have what's called the 1031 exchange or the step up if something happens to you. So there's nothing better than real estate. What's happening here in Florida? I think it's going really relatively well. I was just reading in the southwest corner of Florida, the prices have gone down. They're not doing so well. But where we are, prices have not gone down. So we see, like, for example, in Ocala, by the way, if you don't know, it is the horse capital of the United States.
The World Equestrian Center.
Yes, a fabulous World Equestrian Center, has the largest retirement community villages, which is really something, if you come to Florida, you should not miss. So it was like in the top 20 of places that people were moving to, because talk about cheap and cheerful. Well, people talk about the prices slipping there and everywhere else. Well, any place I have houses, the prices have gone down, because the average house that was 290 and is still 290 if you're an owner occupant and we don't sell to them, we're closing houses for 239, 249, and 259. Okay. So if you're an investor, you understand what does that do for the appraisals? The appraisals go down. It doesn't mean it's really worth any less, because you can't build them. Like for in Palm Bay, okay, it costs, say, $250,000 today to build the same house. It cost maybe $220 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Now we're closing people that only paid $260,000 for those houses. So what does that do? The houses are really worth about $340,000. You can always tell that by going to a national builder. But because we have these houses that have been on the books for way too long, and they just ruin what the comps are. I would say that Florida, there's so many good things that are happening. There's a new rail from Orlando to Miami, fast rail. It's beautiful. Oh, I'll tell you something that's happened. Disney's cruise line thing has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and taken over more space, so that they really are closing other marinas to give them more space. And Cape Canaveral has been the number one port in the world for cruise lines. Miami goes one year, Cape Canaveral goes the other year. But you're going to see with Disney Cruise Line, that's going to probably take everything over. So we have a lot of cruising. We have Port Canaveral. Of course, we have the Kennedy Space Center. We have NASA. I have a house here in New Smyrna. And some of your people bought these houses around here for about 200, 225, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Now they're 450.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So if you just hold on, and I think they say that if you buy whatever you buy in real estate, it's going to double in 7-8 years. Now, it might not really happen in 7-8 years, but all of a sudden it's 10 years and you'll see where it happens. So Florida, well, of course, a lot of you know that Florida, when COVID was around, we were completely open. We went out New Year's Eve. Our restaurants were only allowed to have 25 to 40% in them. But not many restaurants have more than that to begin with. That's number one. You would be going to the shopping center, and you would see all these license plates from every place else in the United States that would come here. So we did a good job with COVID. I mean, everybody's very careful. They didn't let anybody out of the hospital or that kind of thing. So we had a good result. Now we see that we have less supply than demand. And I know that sounds crazy, but we still have that. Also, another thing is I only sell new houses. And I'm going to tell you why I only sell new houses. First of all, new house, you should really get about 17, 18 years out of a roof. You should get the water heater. All those things should last. But in Florida and any place in the nation now, a house that's built in 2024 is built to 2024 codes. And guess what that does? It decreases the insurance by huge amount.
Yeah.
If you bought a house from me in 2019, that's when the codes really changed. Your insurance is still $80 a month, $100 a month, which is a nothing. But if you bought a 20-year-old house, you'd be looking at $6,000, $7,000 a year. So that's why I only sell new homes. And now I'm only selling new homes that I really have a key for, which makes a big difference. So you don't have to wait forever. And all my builders are doing that 4.25% loan, 30-year amortization, 10-year fixed. We also have another lender that will do a 30-year fixed loan. And it comes out to be about 5.7 if you want it. But then basically you're using your own money to buy down the rate. Whereas with the 4.25, you put whatever the rate is in the price. So say your price is $250 and it's going to cost you $18,000 to buy it down. So now your price is $268, but the $18,000 is in the price of the house and the price sure the house appraises, and you're going to pay 4.25% on that $18,000 rather than taking it out of your bank account now or wherever it might be, and you're losing 5, 6, 10%. So that's why people are doing it. I mean, I would borrow any amount of money at 4.25%, wouldn't you? So that's what we're doing. We have houses in Ocala. They're 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. They're small. They're in Ocala, Dunellen, and Ocklawaha. And as I mentioned, the Villages is closest to Ocklawaha, and Ocala has the largest distribution center in Florida, probably, I don't know, where 50, some huge amount of square footage right on I-75. So there's a lot of places to work there. And in Palm Bay, that market is very interesting because obviously it's right in the middle of, what's going on with Elon Musk and all those guys. So, and we have Patrick Air Force Base, we have Grumman, we have Lockheed Martin, we have all of those people. So the end of the sentence there is a lot of good jobs with a lot of good money. Then we have Northport, which is northwest. Well, it's kind of like in the middle of the state, just south of Tampa, but north, it's in Sarasota County. And those houses are absolutely gorgeous. You drive down the street and people actually stop to see the house. It's so nice looking. And they're doing the 4.25% loan too. And we have I had 6 of them on Monday. I think we have 4 left. So, that's what we have. We also have a place called Sebring, and some of you might not understand Sebring. So Sebring is kind of like in the middle of the state. There was a recent movie, which was Ford and Ferrari, and that's where Sebring, that's what they do. We have an interesting thing there. A lot of investors like this because you can get one loan, one parcel ID, 3 homes on 1 half-acre lot. So you have your own little nest. And the thing about Sebring, and we also have duplexes there, the thing about Sebring is different than other places. It's a lot of Midwesterners. So they might keep one house for themselves. So when you have an exit plan, you have a little bit more of an exit plan because they will actually come down and buy your duplex or buy your 3 houses on 1 lot and keep half for themselves and rent out the other side, which doesn't really normally happen in a lot of places because usually the codes for duplexes and triplexes and all that put the houses in places when people don't really want their families to live. But that's not Sebring. Sebring is like just a nice middle-class, great place.
Now, Jean, you work a wider variety of areas than many folks do. So Florida's a big place, and, you're not in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, but you are in kind of a large area. So how do you counsel folks about deciding what makes sense for them in terms of a long-term investment?
Okay, so with new investors, I really try to keep them at a lower price range, which would be the Ocala area, because I know that they're going to buy something for $250,000. They're going to be so happy because it appraises for $270,000, $280,000, and they're going to feel like they did a great job. For a different kind of investor, I actually think that it's great to try something different. So I also have Ponciana, which is Disney. So people always ask me, which is better, Ponciana or Disney? And I would say it's a big price difference. So in Northport, they're $406,000. They rent about $2,700, and they're gorgeous. Okay, you can take it down to $383 if you don't get that 4.25% loan. Okay, so that's a big number. I mean, truthfully, that's a big number. The average cost of a house in Florida or anywhere else, I guess, is now $404,000. So that's a big number. And if you're from a state where it's expensive, people just go, oh, that's okay. But if you're from Florida to begin with, you go, oh my gosh, how did we get up to $400,000 for our home? Okay. So there's just different things that you're looking at. A lot of Californians now were running to Southwest Florida. There's reasons for that. It's not my favorite place, never has been. But I do like things that are in that Sarasota County, because that's like, you can be in Tampa in 45 minutes, okay? You can be, and there's 4 airports. So that's a big thing. And there's a lot of industry. I would just say that I go through people I asked their tolerance. Like I had a gentleman the other day who has bought a house in me in Palm Bay, and he wants to buy two more. So I let him sign up for one. And I said, look, I'm going to send you an email and I'm going to say, I know I'm going to wait a long time. This builder is as slow as pond water. And I promise I won't bother you. Because that's what happens. I mean, I get people all the time, I put my money down and I blah, blah, blah. And I go, it's a small builder. He can only do 20 houses at a time. So he does 10 that are cash because you pay as you go. And he does 10 that are financed. And that's what he can do. So what happened to him, in fact, was that we sold 80 houses in a month, right? And a lot of people have gotten their houses and they've rented really well. It's a great area. But some other people are waiting and they get tired of waiting. Now, do you remember? I know you do, Robert. Back in 2002 and 3, we would put down our deposit and like to wait.
Right.
Because as we waited, guess what? The prices went up. It's the same here. It's the same here. They started at, some of them started at 270. The prices are 340. Now, they don't have a house yet, but they have a commitment. So I think people really like both of those areas because there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot going on. And, you can see the growth. I mean, there's a Home Depot on every corner. Now, the other place that we have houses is Ponciana, Disney, 17 different Disney things. And we can just really have the opportunity when it is that like that to have different kinds of people moving in and moving out. And there's lots of jobs. There's, Disney jobs, which aren't so great, but you put two Disney jobs together, you got $100,000 and they can pay your rent. Or we have a steel company down there. We got a lot of people that in schools and everything is new down there. It has to be new. Why does it have to be new? Because you got new houses, you got to have new schools, you have new firemen, you have new policemen, all that kind of stuff. So that's, a little bit of why we would go there. And people have been very successful there. When I started selling those 4 years ago, maybe 5, they were 190,000. And now they're like 330. It's amazing what the prices have done. And they'll go, oh, it's inflation and it's, we had COVID and all that. Yeah, but if it's not that today, it's going to be something else tomorrow. It's always something. It's never, ever stays the way we think it should. But I help with people. I try to understand their financial situation and why they're doing it. I had a couple today, and I told them to do the 10-year amortization 4.25 mortgage because they're older. And I said to them, you're going to leave it to your kids or you're going to, what are you going to do with it? And they said, no, we're not going to leave it to our kids. It's our, we want to sell it. So I said, you're going to sell it, within those 10 years. I mean, that's not I don't know how many people keep their houses for 15, 20 years. Do you?
Not too many. It's the minority.
And then a lot of people want to change it because, there's other options for financing. Maybe the options have gotten better, or they also want to buy something else. So say you have a house and in 8 years, you paid $250 for it. And in 8 years, it's worth, I don't know, 400. Okay.
Yep.
Well, then that's a lot of money to have in one place if you're young, because you can take your equity out and buy 2 houses. And that's called the 1031 exchange. You can pay anything to Uncle Sam. So, and that's how investors really get started. I for a young investor, I always say, your idea is to have 10 houses, 1 a year. That's all you have to do. Okay.
Yep.
And then at the end of 5 years, sell half of them and pay for the other ones. Well, just think of that. And with what's going on now, the rents are at least $2,000 around there. So you got a good amount of money coming in and you don't have anything to worry about. And that's what all of us old people would like to say we did when we were 30, 35, 40 years old. So, and there's a lot more talk about investing than there ever was before. There's a lot more talk. It's interesting. Everything goes up. You just have to live long enough. So take care of yourself, eat right, exercise, and take care of yourself.
That is so good. Our guest today is Jean Gillen. She helps folks find investment properties in the cheap and cheerful state of Florida. We'll have more from Jean when we come back, and we'll play real estate trivia next. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Need help with your real estate investment portfolio? Check out the resources page at realestateguysradio.com.
As I speak, inflation is robbing you at a rate north of 10%. Last year, the number one zip code that Mid-South homebuyers offered income property to Real Estate Guys listeners in appreciated by 21%. To harness that spread and protect and grow your wealth in the current economic storm, you need the 2 decades of experience in renovation and management that Mid-South homebuyers brings to their investors. Every home Mid-South offers you will have brand new components, a new 30-year roof, and a high-quality renter, all in a price range under $150,000. Their empathetic property managers will use your ROI as their North Star, while the lack of repairs on their totally renovated properties contributes to their almost 4-year average renter stay and 99% occupancy rate. Learn about their lifetime occupancy guarantee and total 1-year maintenance guarantee by emailing midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. That's midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. You'll be glad you did.
Are you ready to ride the wave of success in the booming car wash industry? Tommy's Express Car Wash is the cutting-edge brand that's revolutionizing the way we clean vehicles. Demand for top-notch, state-of-the-art tonal car washes is skyrocketing. Institutions are diving in head first, and we're already a step ahead. We have a world-class operations team, and we are building a portfolio of Tommy's Express car washes that's on track to become one of the largest privately owned car wash portfolios in the U.S. The margins on a stabilized Tommy's Express car wash are incredible, and accredited investors have the chance to join us on this venture. I'm Dave Zook, founder and CEO of The Real Asset Investor, and my team and I are thrilled to share this opportunity with you. Let's boost your cash flow, unlock massive tax benefits, and get you set up for a lucrative exit just a few years from now. To get a copy of your free report, send an email to carwash@realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, this is Garrett Sutton, Rich Dad's advisor. Remember, equity happens, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Thanks for tuning into the show. Hey, if you're enjoying this talk about Florida, well, then come hang out with the Real Estate Guys in Jacksonville, Florida. We're doing our annual field trip to Jacksonville, September 13th, 14th, 15th. You'll learn all about the market and surrounding markets, see where the jobs and other drivers are, and tour some awesome real estate. Get all the details on the website at realestateguysradio.com. Under the tab that says Events, go to Live and In-Person Events, where you'll find the Jacksonville field trip. We're talking today about cheap and cheerful Florida today with our friend Jean Gillen. Before we get back to that interview, it's time to play real estate trivia. That's your chance to win a prize by knowing today's real estate trivia question. Just a minute when I ask the question, if you can quickly come up with an answer, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Give us your name, your mailing address, and the answer to the question. First person that gets it right gets an awesome book by our friend Kim Kiyosaki called Rich Woman. That can be yours if you know today's real estate trivia question. Last week, we had the amazing Keith Weinhold with us. We asked this: name the only U.S. state where it's illegal to pump your own gas. Well, the answer is New Jersey. It is now the only state in America where drivers cannot legally pump their own gas after Oregon lifted its 72-year-old ban on self-service gas stations, allowing stations to operate half of their pumps as self-serve. Oregon's move makes New Jersey the last state where drivers can't touch the gas pump. Gas station owners in New Jersey can be fined as much as $250 for a first offense if drivers are caught handling the gas pump. As if gas wasn't already expensive enough. Here's our real estate trivia question for this week. Jean's been talking about some of the different drivers, the employers, and the reasons people like Florida. Florida has a lot of schools. In fact, it has one big old university. Name the largest university in the state of Florida. If you think you know or just want to guess, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Give us your name, the name of the largest university in Florida, and your mailing address. The first person that gets it right gets this awesome book, Rich Woman by Kim Kiyosaki. That's today's real estate trivia question. Speaking of rich women, our guest today is Jean Gillen. She helps folks just like you find investment properties in cheap and cheerful Florida. Hey, Jean, obviously, Florida has been the recipient of a lot of businesses and a lot of jobs, net in-migration. People continue to move there, and that's why it has the attention of investors who live in other places. I know a lot of your clients don't live in Florida, which means you need to solve the property management equation. So let's talk about that. I know you've got great relationships with builders, and the financing is fabulous. Once they do get the home, and they're looking for the tenant and so forth, talk about property management there in Florida.
Okay, so what's really interesting is that in all my time with investors, I have only sold 5 houses to a girlfriend in Florida and 1 house to a gentleman in Miami that came through your show. So that's it.
Yeah.
Nobody from Florida came to me to buy because I don't market to them. I market to people outside. So obviously I have to have a way for that to work. So we have 2 or 3 property managers. Depends on what you like. The first group is called the Realty Medics, which my son used to own, okay? He just sold it. And it's a big group. They have 75 employees. And people that are busy really like them because there's always somebody to call, somebody to ask them what to do. But they have, as I said, 75 people. This guy goes out and puts the lockbox on. This guy goes out and makes sure the garage, everything is clean. This guy goes out and does something else. All of the property management we have is 8%. I think the renewal is $150 a year. The average person stays in the house for 4 years, which is really good. You want that guy to stay there. When they call you up and say, well, okay, we got to renew. What would you like to ask? I always tell them, just keep it the same. It's working for me now. I don't want them to leave because if they leave, I got to clean the house. I got to paint the house. I got to do all this stuff.
Yep.
So the other property manager I have is a lady. Her name is Marilyn. And she probably has 100, 150 houses if she has that many. She's been doing it for 40 years. Okay. So she likes to go out and show the house when it's being rented. Then she'll go back if they rent it the day they move in and shows them how to use everything. Then in 6 months, she'll drive by. She's out there anyway, usually, and she'll knock on the door and do a surprise visit to make sure they're still alive and your house is still there. So that's the person you want if you want a hands-on person. The other one is the person you want if you want a machine, a great oiled, wonderful running machine. And there are others, that we also use. And you can use whomever you want. I have had people decide to do it themselves, and that's a nightmare. You don't need another problem because then if something happens in the middle of the night and you're in, Washington, what are you going to do? You're going to call me. I'm not getting up in the middle of the night, right? I'm not the property manager. I'll help you, but I really don't recommend that. And the 8%, which is, say, something like, it could be $160 a month. Maybe in some cases it's more, but it's definitely, I think, worthwhile. They watch your house. One of the things that I like to do is deal with a builder that owns the same houses. So the guy in Northport, very cool guy, Brock is his name. He came into my life about 7, 8, maybe 8 years ago. Young guy at that time, maybe about 24, walks in, says, I want to work with you. I want to be your partner. I want to build your houses. I thought, okay, yeah, really. Okay. Anyway, he's turned out to be the best. And he's come to a lot of different events. So he owns over 140 houses himself now. It says he's 32 now. He's built hundreds of houses. He doesn't use subs. He has his own construction company, which he didn't have one before. And that means a lot. My guy in Ocala too, he doesn't use subs. When he sells a house, say he sells a house to me, he keeps 3 himself. And that's what you want his house is very recognizable because it's very modern. So, and he does all the property management himself for Northport and Ponciana, and it's still 8%. And a lot of these guys, just when you buy a house in Northport, you're going to get a year property manager free. Same in Palm Bay. So long story short, that's how I do property management. And I will say that I have a relationship with all my property managers. So that means if you have a problem, you can call me. If you use somebody else, I can't call them. I don't know who they are. So I can call them and say, hey, look, you want some more property management fee? Go out and fix what's going on, that kind of thing.
So, Jean, you've been in this business a long time, and you've helped a lot of folks get started. And some of the feedback that we get is that the new investor just really appreciates the time you spend with people and how you make sure that the investment makes sense for them. What would you say to someone today who maybe hasn't bought a property yet? They're looking to buy their first investment property. You've helped people through this for years and years and years. What kind of recommendations do you make to that brand new investor?
Yeah, I just had one the other day, and she really wanted Ponciana. And she was asking me to do Ponciana or Palm Bay. And I did tell her Ponciana because Palm Bay will just frustrate her because it takes so long. And I can do it shorter, but I wouldn't be my builder. I would have to go to a national builder. I would say I have to figure out your tolerance. That's a big thing because I only sell in areas where the schools are relatively good or really good. So Palm Bay is A, Northport is A. It'll say that Ocala is a B plus. Of course, so I tried it, and of course Ponciana is the same. It's probably a B plus area. I always tell people schools in Florida are notoriously not great. Okay. They aren't. So you want to live in a place like Windermere or Winter Park, yeah, but the houses start at $1 million, right?
Right.
And I know people that have actually rented in those areas so their kids could go to those schools. But the other areas, there's what they call charter schools. So it may look like the schools aren't great, but every area has a charter school. My grandkids go to charter school. So what does that mean? You have to apply. You have to be there with your child. You have to go to school and volunteer. You have to be involved. And if your child misbehaves, goodbye, go somewhere else, right? So that's what Florida is all about. And people in California have told me the same thing, that California schools are not so great unless you live in a place where very wealthy people live. So I don't know if it's all over the United States or in some areas people don't care or some people care more. We're very, very conservative in their schools. And I don't mean conservative like they can't, read certain books or something, but parents still have their rights when it comes to school. And if they want the teacher to, discipline a child, they can do that too. They just have to go for it. But when you want good schools in Florida, you have to take the time to go to a charter school. And even in the high schools, they have different high schools. This is for if you want to be a lawyer. This is if you want to be a this. Most kids don't know what they want to be, very often.
So true. Well, so much to talk about in cheap and cheerful Florida. It's been great catching up with you, Jean. Thanks so much for being back on the show.
Thank you. I have to say, I've been to the secrets of syndication. It's really, you can learn a whole lot more than just syndication there. I mean, I've never done a syndication, but I learned a lot. And you'll meet a lot of investors that have, done really well. Some, will give you a horror story, but they're still in there because they know the horror story, that's going to happen every once in a while. But normally it doesn't. And we really try to make sure that you're happy with your investments.
Absolutely. Well, it's always good to have you at our events. Hey, Jean has put together some great information that gets a lot more specific about the markets. We'll tell you how you can get a hold of that when we come back. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Live nationwide, you're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, I'm Jim Shields of Southern Impression Homes, and our company has worked with hundreds of investors in the Real Estate Guys radio community over the last decade to help make their rental property goals a reality. We are the 2.0 turnkey solution. We only do new construction, focus on high-growth, landlord-friendly markets in Florida, even have cutting-edge property management in place to help protect your assets and your time. And to top it all off, we offer our own in-house financing with mortgage rates today as low as 4.25%. So let our team here at Southern Impression Homes help you achieve your goals like we've so many in the Real Estate Guys community. Check out our build-to-rent program at Southern Impression Homes.
Let Jim and the team help you achieve your goals of financial freedom like they've done for so many others. Check out their build-to-rent program by sending an email to sihomes@realestateguysradio.com. 1031 exchange buyers are welcome. That's sihomes@realestateguysradio.com.
If you love real estate and have always wanted to own your own business, listen up. The Real Estate Guys and their panel of experts want to teach you how to go full-time fast in the real estate syndication business. These next few years may go down in history as one of the best times ever to acquire investment real estate. There are deals everywhere if you know where to look and how to assemble the resources. The Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar will show you how to make big money doing big deals from a team of experts that have syndicated projects totaling more than $1 billion. Don't wait for someone to give you a raise or create a job for you. Attend the Secrets of Successful Syndication and learn how to build a team, raise capital, find deals, and make full-time money in 6 months or less. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events. All the big players use syndication as a way to diversify risk, optimize profits, and earn big money. You can too. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events.
Hello, this is Dave Lendiger, co-founder of RE/MAX International. You're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you've ever thought about doing bigger deals, using other people's money, or passively investing alongside folks that are doing bigger deals with better margins, then it's time to get signed up for the Secrets of Successful Syndication. You've heard us talk about that amazing event. Since 2011, we do it twice a year. The next one, totally virtual. For the first time in 4 years, we're going virtual, so no matter where you are in the world or the country, you can tune in. It's still 2 full days of amazing content with more than a dozen speakers. It happens September 20th and 21st. And just so you don't miss out on all the live fun and networking, when you enroll in the Secrets of Successful Syndication virtually, it is a live 2-day event, but you'll also get a free ticket to the next live in-person event in March of 2025. If that sounds good to you, check it out at the website at realestateguysradio.com under the tab that says Events, or send an email to syndication@realestateguysradio.com. Well, awesome to hear from Jean Gillen. I just love how enthusiastic she is. There's so much going on in her state. And again, she monitors several markets. When we first met Jean, she was doing a lot of new home sales for the reasons she mentioned, but she was doing the occasional resale. And now, because of insurance and because of how much tenants love new properties, she's really devoted the majority of her time in finding these great opportunities. She's been in the business long enough that she knows how to vet these folks, and she has great relationships with builders. And even more so, she treats every client as though they're going to buy a lot of property from her over the years, because that has been true. And it brings up even a greater point. Jean was one of my dad's favorite agents. He just loved real estate people that worked with investors and had a heart for that. He knew lots of realtors that were helping people buy and sell the homes they live in, that's for sure. But his heart was with folks who recognized that investors are a special lot. And if you treat them well, they won't just buy one house from you every 5 or 7 years. They'll continue to invest when the numbers make sense and the market is strong. If the Central Florida markets that Jean represents sound interesting to you, you can reach out to Jean and get some of her research. She puts together videos every few months on what's happening in the market, and she's very hands-on with investors. To learn more, just send an email to centralflorida@realestateguysradio.com. centralflorida@realestateguysradio.com. And discover whether or not a brand new, beautiful rental home is in the cards for you. in cheap and cheerful Florida. Well, we've spent the majority of the show talking about real estate markets, so today's market spotlight's going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about a niche within real estate investing on today's Market Spotlight. This week, we're not going to look at a real estate market, but a whole real estate sector with our good friend, the apartment king, Brad Sumrok. Hey, Brad.
Hey, Robert. I'm excited to be here today.
Well, last time you were with us on Market Spotlight, you shared about a specific market, but I thought, let's talk about apartments in general. Is it time to get into the apartment game? Is it too hard? Is it too late? And I thought no one better than the apartment king. What say you, Brad?
Well, hey, look, it's a great time to get in apartments right now. And there's a couple of reasons why. I mean, number one, prices are down 20 to 30% from the peak of 2022. And so imagine being able to buy a deal that maybe was $100,000 a unit, and it still could have been a good deal, but now you could get that same deal for $80,000 a unit. The fundamentals are really strong. I mean, why do you think the Fed has been resistant in cutting rates? And we're still in an inflationary environment, although it's a lot lower, but inflation favors apartments, right? Because as inflation goes, it's easier to raise the rents. The tax benefits are still amazing. We're still in a bonus depreciation situation. And look, the competition, if you're a buyer right now, there are people with their pencils down. And so if you have your pencil up, like I do, and many of my students do, you're just not going to be competing. Like in 2022, we were competing against tens of buyers going after the same deal. And now what we're seeing is maybe two or three. And look, I just sold a deal in July, and I wish I had two or three buyers going after my deal. I had one, and I was negotiating against myself with that one buyer. And the buyer was able to work me a little bit.
Well, that brings up a great point, because there's always a demand for apartments, but they're not always on sale like they are right now. And let's face it, there are some folks who got into trouble in the last several years and bought incorrectly or didn't think about long-term financing. So are you starting to see some of those deals come back around?
Yeah, and look, people tend to have short memories. Like I've been in the business for 22 years, and I've been through the 2008 downturn. And, there was a time in like 09 and 10 where people were like, oh my God, like it's so hard, like, but lenders aren't lending. And, hey, is this really the right thing to do? And, there was a crisis in 2008 and 9, and maybe we should be on the sidelines and wait. But looking back, I don't know anybody that wishes they would have bought less in 2009 and 10. And so, yeah, we had some challenges right now. And there are still some deals that are challenged. But one thing that people need to remember is, like you said, like, number one, people always need a place to live. And look, I've heard that before. I mean, we all hear that. And that alone doesn't justify like, hey, it's always a great time to buy. But I mean, literally, it's like, if you just look at like, where are people going to live? You take a family that makes 50 or 60,000 a year, the B and C class, which is what I specialize in landlord-friendly markets with high job growth and high population growth. And I also look at this thing I call the affordability gap. And so when we find markets, Robert, just say like a Dallas or a Tampa, or just two that I'm really keen on, where the median priced home is $450,000, how is that family that makes 50 or 60,000 a year going to come up with that down payment, meet the credit requirements? Plus the PITI is going to be $3,000 a month, whereas the median priced apartment is $1,300 less. And so all of these things really favor renting apartments.
Such a good point. It is a little daunting when you're starting out. Most people start with single family homes. You didn't. Your first investment was a 32-unit apartment building. How do you get folks to think bigger?
Well, look, they say you become like the people you spend most time with. So when people were around me and my students, there's evidence of success. My first deal was 32 units, but I didn't do it alone. I had a mentor, and I was part of an investor club. And so in 2013, I formed my own, and now it's arguably, the number one real estate education and mentoring program for apartment syndication and apartment investing. So look, there's nothing wrong with starting with 2 units, 4 units, or 6 units if you want to do everything yourself, but you're going to be limited with the amount of money you have and the amount of time you have. And so by pooling resources together, time, money, and experience as a group, we could go out and buy a business, Okay, so we're not really just buying real estate. We're buying real estate from the get-go that we could actually run as a business owner. And what does that mean is we could buy enough doors, pooling resources, people, time, and money together where we could afford professional management and we could get better financing. And so I'm really just teaching people how to be business owners in the multifamily arena.
Love it. In fact, your big annual event, AIM NatCon, coming up at the end of September in Dallas, Texas, is extraordinary. I know I'm going to be there. Haven't missed one. This will be number 7. Tell us about AIM NatCon and who's it really designed for, Brad?
Yeah, so look, AIM NatCon, it's my favorite event. We do several events a year, but one of the things I love about it, it's a 3-day event, and I teach the framework to become a millionaire apartment investor, which is available to people that are committed to learn and to actually take action, but you got to learn, and I bring in speakers to support that framework. So we're going to be talking about things like raising capital, buying deals and evaluating deals. We're also going to be talking about like managing deals. We're going to be talking about, the mindset of being a business owner and going bigger with 60 plus units versus going after a 6 unit. So what we're going to be doing is step by step walking through what it takes to be a millionaire apartment investor. So this event is for people that want to scale in multifamily quickly. And so if you're new, I've helped a lot of people go from 0 to 60 or 0 to 80 or 0 to 300 in their first transaction. Now, if you're also maybe not new, but you're playing in the smaller arena, you're buying, you got 12 units or 18 units or 2 units or 4 units. This event will help that person go to that 60, 80 or 100 units so much faster.
Well, I love all the speakers you have. I love all the content, but what really impresses me is how many apartment owners, new, middle, experienced, come, and you can meet these folks that started out just like you, weren't sure about whether or not apartments were right, figured it out, built a team and a camaraderie. And that's one of the really cool things. The event takes place in Dallas, Texas at the end of September. If you want all the details, just send an email to AIM NatCon. That's Apartment Investor Mastery, AIM, Nat, National Conference, AIM NatCon at realestateguysradio.com. You'll get all the details. Brad, who's speaking at the event?
Well, there's a guy named Robert Helms. He runs this amazing podcast, and I've had him 6 years, and he's coming for the 7th year.
All right. I don't want to miss that.
Yeah. So you want to be there for that. And then, of course, my good friend, Tom Wheelwright, who's my CPA and has been associated with Robert Kiyosaki as a rich dad advisor for taxes, and he's helped me save millions on my taxes. We have other speakers as well. For the first time ever, we have David Moore. David is the founder and CEO of NightVest. NightVest has over 60,000 units. I didn't say 16,000. I said 60,000. And then Charlie Young is coming back for the 5th or 6th time. And his company, Madeira Residential, has 20,000 units. We have Neil Bawa, who has been referred to as the mad scientist of multifamily. We have John Chang, who's the senior vice president of the largest commercial real estate firm in the country, Marcus and Millichap. He'll be there. And there's a few others that I haven't even mentioned.
All right. Well, I know I'm not going to miss it. You shouldn't miss it either, whether you're seasoned when it comes to apartments or just thinking about, is it time to get into investing in apartments? Come on out to AIM NatCon, September 27th, 28th, 29th, Dallas, Texas. Get all the details by sending an email to aimnatcon at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks, Brad. We'll see you there.
Thank you, Robert.
Brad Sumrok is the apartment king. Make sure you come hang out with us at AIM NatCon. It's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, Brad will also be one of the faculty members at the Secrets of Successful Syndication, September 20th and 21st, taking place wherever you are, our virtual event. Big thanks to Brad for popping in today, and of course to Jean Gillen for sharing not only her knowledge, but her absolute enthusiasm for cheap and cheerful Florida. If you're new to real estate investing, I think the big message today is just consider the market as carefully, if not more carefully, than you do the property, and you'll be in good shape. If you're a seasoned investor, perhaps it's time to add fabulous Florida to your portfolio. Hey, I just had a chance to attend the amazing Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, Nevada. Next week, you'll hear some of the special guests I had a chance to interview there. it's going to be a good show. Until then, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. Asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and Rich Dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys Radio Show.